What is mediation in the context of a divorce? Mediation is a process by which you can hopefully resolve all of the disputed issues in your case. In mediation, you and your spouse select a neutral third party to act as the mediator. Typically, I see the most success when the mediator is either a family attorney or a retired judge. The mediator educates you on the law, talks about process, and equally as important, the mediator can answer the what ifs. What if I take my case to court? How do you think a judge would rule on this particular issue? Now, I'm not saying that your mediator can predict what a judge would do in your case, but if your mediator is familiar with the county in which you live, where your case would be filed, and your mediator has skill set as an attorney that's practiced family law, he or she could likely predict potential outcomes. Those potential outcomes can guide you to a settlement where you're not so far off what could potentially happen in court. The mediator, however, is not your decision maker. Remember that mediation is not the same as arbitration. In mediation, it's a self-guided process to a large extent. You're scheduling the time frames, you're selecting the mediator, you're presenting your position to the mediator, and the mediator is guiding you through a process to reach a resolution that both you and your spouse will agree to. Litigation, though, is in court. Litigation is trying your case in a courtroom to a judge. You're presenting facts, you're presenting evidence, and by facts, I mean testimony. You're testifying, your spouse is testifying. If you engage some experts in the case, your experts are testifying. And a judge is ruling on the admissibility of evidence. The judge is ruling on the admissibility of statements a witness may make on the stand, their cross-examination. That entire process plays out in a courtroom. Then your lawyers will step back, and typically we're writing written summations, although sometimes a judge could say orally sum up your case, and then the judge retires and you wait several weeks, in some instances several months, to get a decision from the judge. Some judges will give you an oral decision where they're making findings of fact, conclusions of law, and ruling on every disputed issue in your case. Other judges will issue what's called a written opinion, same data points, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and they decide the disputed issues in your case in a written format. Either way, you're putting your life, your children's life, your family's financial future in the hands of the judge. What can you resolve by way of mediation? Well, you can resolve everything in mediation, from custody and parenting time of the children to holiday schedules to financial issues, how we're going to resolve alimony, child support, equitable distribution. What do we do with the liabilities accumulated during the course of the marriage? How do we build a financial structure that both parties can live with? So custody, finances, parenting time, all resolvable by way of mediation. Everybody getting divorced, with the exception of those families involved in a domestic violence dispute, everybody else should consider mediation. Why? Because it's cost effective, it's predictable in terms of scheduling, and most importantly, from my perspective, you have control over the outcome. You have control over the decision. You can think creatively in mediation. Not that judges aren't creative, but judges are bound by certain statutes and case law and the like. And that ability to be creative, for instance, a judge is going to look at the marital home. There's a dispute over it. The judge isn't going to say, well, husband, you could buy out the wife. Or wife, you could buy out the husband. Instead, the judge is likely going to say, sell it and split the proceeds. So if you're looking for some creativity, you have creativity at the settlement table. You don't have creativity in the courtroom because you're asking a judge to make a decision for you and you have no idea, no crystal ball to know what the judge is going to do with the facts that you present in court. Should you mediate? Should you arbitrate? Should you litigate? Mediation is a form of alternative dispute resolution. It's highly effective in divorce because we know in the state of New Jersey, 99% of people getting divorced settle their case at some point in the continuum of their divorce. Mediation puts you in control of outcomes, and it allows you to be creative in a cost-effective and efficient manner.